members need contribution statements annually as it relates to their total contributions for the year. That's one good area of transparency. Show them what they gave throughout the year. For one, it'll empower them. But number two, it's actually an IRS tax requirement to issue contribution statements. So I don't know if your church is doing that, and I'm not putting anyone under the bus on that. That's one very effective way to start the communication process with that membership. Contribution statement annually shows what they gave calendar year January 1 to December 31st. That's normally due out at the very beginning of the following year. But put it in their hands. Thank them, appreciate them. Bishop Gates was even saying that today. He had the pastor stand up and give their members a standing ovation. Then he had the members, maybe vice versa, he had the members stand up and give pastors a standing ovation. At home, I do an annual business meeting. I give the membership high praise for their giving, high accolades and high praise for their giving. All right, we're getting there. Let's give up. Let's be. All right, now let me figure this out. All right, let me figure this out. Okay.
Is that you all?
Yeah, you gotta switch it.
Okay, that's the, they'll put it back full
All
screen.
right, full screen and then just
Forward and back, yep, that's it,
All right,
forward and
all
back.
right. Great. So we've gone through this. This is my subject matter. This is part 2. Like I said, welcome everyone. Welcome. This is part 2 of that seminar workshop, budgeting and finance. Hopefully this is budgeting and finance for you. This will hopefully introduce you. You're welcome again. And what you're going to see is I'm going to just toggle if I can get to where I want to go. Thank you all for that dialogue too. I appreciate that dialogue.
I have a question while they're getting it. What software would you recommend membership management?
All right, so here's the challenge. I'll use an organization as an example. We're using a version of QuickBooks. Believe it or not. I was like, QuickBooks? Why are we using QuickBooks? It's not robust enough. Now, what I found out is with QuickBooks, there is, okay.
There you go.
We're in business.
Yes, sir.
So a software like QuickBooks, but you want to make sure that you integrate with managed membership piece of their giving, the membership portion. For QuickBooks, the version that the organization uses is very robust. It's not like a mom and pop. It's very robust. QuickBooks for the online version. Local management software I use also is Howard Church Plus. Howard Church Plus is more geared toward church membership management. Howard Church Plus. If you look them up, howardchurch.com, I think that's the guy. I use that for a lot of our church clients.
That's what our church uses. Our church, it's great. It has the membership module and also has a contribution module.
Yes, ma'am. That QuickBooks doesn't necessarily have, but the Power Church is my recommendation.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. We're toggling here. We talked about what we talked about in the first course. That's what it looks like now. We talked about that. We're going to deal with unforeseen pitfalls. All right. Okay. So yeah, here's where I left off: budget versus forecast. I think we had some questions in here in terms of how to kind of decipher between the two. So a budget is a financial plan for your business. All right. A financial plan for your business. A forecast kind of is an indication of whether that plan is working. All right. Whether that plan is working is what a forecast is. And this is in layman's terms. A budget is based on historical data, oftentimes based on historical data. A forecast is based on future data. So nonprofit, you may have actuals that you started the calendar year. A forecast is more of an estimate or a budgeted analysis of what the potential future may look like. So you may need to compile a forecast that includes both current and some future activity to get a clearer picture of where you want to go. A budget, you like that? A budget is a stationary analysis based on estimates. A forecast, again, is essentially like a moving budget. It's like a moving budget based on estimated past information and also based on actual current data. So that's kind of like a difference between what a budget is. This is a example of what a comprehensive budget analysis would look like. Again, what you want to do is show trending activity and comparative activity. Trending activity and comparative activity. This is an example. If you see the columns here, your actual current year, your budgeted estimate, a forecast that includes a combination of both of these line items. You could do averaging and basically look at an average based on what an actual period. This could be a 3-month period. This could be a 6-month period, a 1-month period, a variance column that kind of does a comparative between actual budget, between budget forecast, between, you can do several types of comparatives. And these line items here are our categories. They're not all in all, end all be all, but we're talking, operating income. This is kind of geared towards small business, but in our course that we talked about at Lee, we really dealt with a church financial budget. When you're talking operating income minus cost of goods sold is your operating profit. That's what that should say. Minus your operating expenses, operating profit, we talked about non-operating expenses in our first course. That will help you come up with your net income. Through comparative analysis of each of these categories to kind of see where you are financially, what adjustments need to be made from a financial standpoint. And you're constantly watching the progress. Sometimes it may even be daily, but you're constantly monitoring your progress in these categories. That's why it's a comprehensive budget analysis, because at any point in time, things can change. At any point in time, things can modify, and you're gonna have to make adjustments accordingly.
Excuse me.
Yes.
That's a question.
Oh,
So you go back, so I get the actual, I get the budget, I get the variance. The forecast is more, so what is the calculation for forecast? It could be a percentage, it could be an average, no, you said it could be an average.
it could be, but I'm more, to your point, I'm more thinking it's a combination of
What's
actual
the combination?
and budget, yeah.
Okay,
It's a combination of what's happening now
right,
versus what you're estimating may happen the rest of the year, and merge those two into a forecast, And you can see actual trends. You may need to make adjustments to the budget, and that's where your forecast comes in. You're foreseeing a future period. Based on activity that has already taken place.
Like your projection.
Based on, yes, projections, yep. That's another good way to
so
put
you
it.
could see, okay, the income, you could see there's going to be a change in income. So you would put that in the forecast, because that's not what you budgeted,
Correct.
but you know, hey, this is going to be a variable that's gonna impact, okay.
And what are you going to do to address
To
that?
address it, I see.
What are you going to do to address that? You're going to have to make some adjustments in this forecast column for expenses. You may have to make some head count payroll change. I use payroll a lot because that's a business's largest expense most of the time.
How often are we revisiting this document?
Yeah.
Is it weekly, monthly, quarterly? How often? And I'm speaking, forgive me, from the nonprofit realm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because again, we start talking about managing grants, spending them down, those line items, so on and so forth. So I guess, I think I just answered my own question. So it's kind of based off of those particular grants.
Based on the nature of the business, it's based on the nature of your business and based on the nature of your audience. If you don't know anything about our presider, I use our great organization as an example. He's on it. So we have to be on it. And provide them with regular reports. My church is no different. My pastor is a very hands-on, but wants to know. So it depends on that. It depends on the audience, it depends on the nature of your business.
As it relates to ministry,
Yes.
and I think someone mentioned this as well, this is sometimes a challenge when you have an older church that's just typically, you know, not used to having these kind of conversations. How important is this that we institute this in our ministry and actually consider it as an auxiliary or a department, if you will?
Bishop mentioned that also is an opening, it's a culture shift that needs to start. I'll be a great example, again, I have to use myself as an example. We were in that same situation, that same boat, as a church, handwritten this, paper this, you know. So it's going to take a push. It's going to take a push from you as a knowledgeable professional to kind of push a culture shift. Software, we talked about that, management, accounting software or management software, to put that information in front of you. It's one thing to talk about it, but to put that physical information in front of you and discuss it, it's going to have to be a combination of all of them. It really is. It really is. But especially, I think I'm going to talk about this in a little bit more detail, especially now, which churches are. I saw another hand. Dr. Box.
The first king.
Okay, this case, yeah.
So, Deacon Leslie, so to answer the questions, like, is it crafted in the bylaws? You know, I guess if something's written in the bylaws, because I work for the states, a lot of it is based on the revised code of the state of Ohio. So in our churches, would it be, we have bylaws that tells us we have to have either monthly meetings, quarterly meetings, monthly financials produced. So if you put that in your bylaws, and I don't know, I just know from my church, I do monthly financial reports every month, you know, because that's part of, you know, my fiduciary responsibility. So, and that's presented to the board of trustees, so we can analyze, review it, and, you know, alert any variances that could, you know, trigger some deficit issues. So, you know, so I don't know, churches have bylaws that can stipulate certain things that's required. You know, I don't know, that's just, you know.
That's completely in order. And now in this virtual space, bylaws can also reflect the nature of the meeting.
Right.
You know, we're now virtual, so our Zoom meetings, our board meetings are now Zoom. And how many of y'all experienced this? Well, I'll come back to that in a second. But definitely bylaws. Bylaws is the primary means of communication. And in the event of an external IRS or external audit, they first will go to those bylaws to see what they say, what's being enforced. And that has to be documented in your bylaws. So you're as an accountant, as a administrator, you're obligated to monitor this process on a regular basis. Frequency depends on the nature of your business, audience, your level of comfort, because I'm always in this stuff. I want to make sure I understand and I can see what's going on so I can effectively communicate. So that's where I think it's really related. And we all can relate. So as I was saying, breaking news. Can you turn it on? Let me do it again. We gotta get it together. We have breaking news here. Breaking news. Who said accountants can't have one? Breaking news here. All right. We have been interrupted with a special report. This is a special report. Let me start get back. I'm so busy hollering and screaming. Wait a minute. I practiced this, y'all. Get me out of here. Get out.
That's-
Okay, let's try it again. Okay. So it's gonna take me here. All right, I'm gonna go past this now. This is the breaking news. We interrupt this bulletin for a special report. All right. We talked about this in lead. 1099K, all right? 1099K, all those that do processing of your administration and your annual reports. You all know a 1099 is required for your preachers that earn $600 or more, your musicians that earn $600 or more, your contractors that you pay, you earn 600. 600 is the threshold. The 1099K is one that deals with merchant transactions. Merchant transactions. And it's an information return, just like those 1099s that I referred to, 1099 miscellaneous, 1099 NEC for non-employee compensation. 1099K is merchant transactions. I'm going to stay here for a minute and I'm going to explain what this is. You all have seen the merchant accounts where you all now have Cash App. You all now have use of Zelle, use of PayPal, use of Venmo, use of Square. These are merchant accounts, merchant transaction accounts. Now, IRS is cracking down on these types of merchant activity. These are information returns that these merchant transaction processing companies now have to issue 1099Ks to businesses and individuals that now receive more than $600 in transactional income. Transactional income. Before ARP, which is the American Rescue Plan that President Biden signed into existence January 1st, 2022. Prior to that, the transactional levels were $20,000 in transactional activity or 200 transactions, merchant transactions, right? Effective January 1, 2022, that threshold decreased to $600 of transactional activity and any number of transactions. I'm gonna stay on this for a second. I'm going somewhere, as preacher said. I'm going somewhere with it.
Take your time, take your time.
What I say here, this last line, is make sure, okay, one thing is crystal clear. This change here is really related to individuals. Individuals that used to grab Cash App monies, hairdressers, lawn care companies, preachers, that may have gathered revenue through Cash App. I use Cash App as an example because that's the, it's great on the recipient side because you're getting that money, but it's an administrative nightmare on the back end. But individuals used to grab that money and not have to deal with the tax implications because it didn't meet this threshold of 20,000 in most cases or 200 transactions. Honestly, truthfully, individuals should be reporting all income that they receive on a regular basis. But because of this threshold, a lot of individuals kind of received it and didn't report it on their taxes. So this American Rescue Plan amendment is really geared toward catching those individuals. And again, truthfully, if you're a person of God and Christian, you should have been reporting that income anyway. You should have been reporting that income anyway. So President Biden is helping us to do that, putting this requirement in place now. Anything over $600, if you're a transactional business that's receiving $600, you will get a 1099K from one of those merchants. Again, a question is, when you talk about these merchant transactions, they're saying, because it's a lot of discussion, is who's going to do this reporting. So again, a Cash App transaction. So they're also going to have to decipher what is birthday money. I see Facebook posts all the time. Hey, it's my birthday. At the bottom, they have their Cash App to receive birthday money. I'm not so sure if that's a good idea. I'm not so sure if that's a good idea. So they receive birthday money. They're going to figure this out. What's business income versus what's personal income? Your reimbursement for a dinner. You could be going out to dinner, brother and sister. You're sending reimbursement to them to pay for your portion. It's not taxable income, no. But the way this process is working is now much more grayer area. So these merchant companies are going to have to decipher what's what. Again, how you can, I'm going back to the screen here. This line item here, you got to make sure your personal social security number, SSN, is not the tax ID linked to that business. And you can't see it here, or church's merchant account, your church merchant account. A lot of pastors, we got to March of 2020. Everything was great. COVID hit. A lot of administrators and pastors weren't receiving monies electronically. They were still physically collecting on a Sunday to Sunday basis. In comes COVID-19, where at a point in time, churches were completely shut. All businesses were shut down. Churches were shut down. So a lot of pastors and administrators that wanted to migrate to this electronic giving, they had to set these accounts up quick. I'm convinced, and I promise you, some of those accounts have been set up with their social security numbers and not with your church's EIN. This is a great example. This is a great example I'm about to show you. You know, in their haste to set this online giving up, because we're missing money. If the churches are shut down, and before COVID, if a church was shut down without the electronic giving, you lost a lot. Now we've got these merchant transactions and these merchant accounts all set up, PayPal website, everything set up. I guarantee you some administrators and some church people, some church folks that set these things up, use their social security numbers to set them up. Why is that important? Why is that important? It's a great example here as to why that's important. I want to show you this. Full disclosure, there's no personal information on here, no social security number, so you don't know who this is. This is a letter I received from the IRS right after LEAD. I explained this at LEAD conference and put some detail into this explanation. Very shortly after LEAD came home, blessed and highly favored the Lord, client sent this message to me, 911. This is I'll say this is a pastor who set up a merchant account with his social security number and not the church's EIN. The IRS then sent a letter, proposed amount due, $31,106. It started out with $25,000. They put the penalties, interest. You know they're vipers and vicious. Is this being online? Hello to our online audience. No offense, but the IRS are a bunch of crooks and vipers. I put that out there socially. They sent this letter and the pastor panicked. And there are a couple more pages here. What it showed on page 2 was that it was a Cash App account that was set up in the pastor's social security number. And the IRS deemed that as income to that pastor because it was in his social. We filed the taxes without this information because it went to the church and went to the church's bank account. And we had to prove that. But this is a live letter. This is a live letter of the ramifications. If you do not set these merchant accounts up correctly, what can happen to your detriment if this isn't set up correctly? We all need these merchant accounts now. But use your church's information. I'm focusing on churches now. If you're a small business, if you are reporting all the income that you earn, I'll say that again, if you're reporting all the income that you earn as a small business owner, it's not even a problem. It's not going to be an issue. That 1099-K is going to come to you, either it's in your social security number of your business or your business EIN, and you're going to report all that income and write off every deduction available to me. It's simple. Be honest and knock that income right off in deductions. You might end up with a business loss. You never know. If your accountant is good, you may end up with a business loss. That's a better deduction to your personal income that'll knock down that taxable debt. Do it. This is an example of a church and pastor that used his social security number to set these accounts up in haste. Money started to flow in, the church started operating and moving smoothly, but we forgot this very critical area. very critical error here. Again, so Cash App, I'm sorry, I'm just.
I was just wondering, so the pastor, that pastor, did he change it to the church? Because the church wouldn't have to pay those taxes, right?
If they're nonprofit, it won't be that. So that's the other question. If your church, by the way it's structured, does not have to file a 501c application to be considered nonprofit. But to answer your question, the church would not be on the hook for it. They wouldn't be, if they're established the way they're supposed to be with that EIN as the key. They wouldn't have to pay taxes on it. They wouldn't have to pay taxes on it. But they have to be structured correctly. They have to be structured correctly.
I just want to ask, so your EIN, your tax determination from the IRS, whenever you get the letter, make sure it's permanently memorialized, because they will ask for it if you ever get audited. It's just, you have to have proof that you are exempt from tax filing, and that should be specified in your, the letter that you got from the IRS. I forget what is your.
Letter of determination.
Yes, thank you, letter of determination, exactly. That should be on like the page 1, on your letter of determination.
Absolutely. We're gonna go into a little more detail on that. But I wanna encourage everyone that have these merchant accounts, go to your Cash App, go to your profile and settings and see what's in there. You're gonna be able to see the settings in your Cash App account. Go to your settings and see if you're set up as a business or as an individual. You also should be able to see if it's an EIN set up or if it's set and linked to your social security number. Yes, sir.
So I know with our church, Cash App is set up, and there is, and I don't know if this is where that you can tell if it's set up for a church or individual, but there's a deduction processing fees. I don't know exactly what they are, but I know that I do see those. Is that a way to determine whether or not you're set up as a person or a church, or could you be set up at a church but didn't use your EIN, but you use your social security number?
Well, to answer that first question, these Cash App, these crooks, they do whatever they want.
Really?
Yeah, they have no respect for person.
Right, because I know we set it up as a church, but I can't remember if it was set up with the person's social security number or the EIN number.
You have to go to your settings, that's
Yeah,
what he's.
go to your settings. Cash App has a very convoluted way of getting there. You're going to go to this website, cash.app/login. Hopefully y'all can see that. Get into your account and check it out.
Yeah.
Get into your account and check it out. See what settings they are. With Cash App, I'm using this as an example. I have another example in a second. They don't have a live voice. You can't get a live voice if you communicate with Cash App. But they have this little chat thing, So you can go into your chat, they'll respond. They are somewhat responsive to the chat. Then they'll ultimately give you a live person through email. You can communicate through email. But I encourage everyone here, whether you're a small business or church, check out what is linked. And this is my example of what PayPal is another one. I got a little more detail on here as to how you can get, there's another settings. You can see here, oh, you can't see it up under here, but the settings setup is business. This is my personal Cash App business account. And you see my settings here. The very last setting here you'll see is a business. I clicked on that and I see my EIN is attached to it. But every one of these platforms has a profile, settings. Go into it and see what's what. If it's linked to your social security number, you may be in trouble if you don't get that fixed. And it depends on the type of business that you are. But you're talking budget. That was another unforeseen pitfall. I think that was what I ultimately wanted to bring out that could affect your budget, an unforeseen pitfall. A note from the IRS stating you owe $31,000 is unforeseen pitfall. If you agree, you would agree. So that's the ultimate discussion point. Bring it back home. That's an unforeseen pitfall that you're gonna have to deal with. Now y'all saw a live example of what I'm talking about. Go into your settings, check and see what's what for any one of these. I just use Cash App. This is PayPal as an example. Venmo, Zelle, they say Zelle may be exempt from this whole 1099 process because it's tied to your bank and not to PayPal Bank or Cash App Bank. So you got to do your homework. You have to do your homework, research it, and find out what's what. Find out what's what. Again, I want to address small businesses here. We talked about the nonprofit corporation, corporate setup. The small business is the backbone of American finance and American corporate wealth, yes. But are you set up correctly? Are you set up correctly? If you're a sole proprietor, which I know a lot of people are, that's a one-person business, you are the sole proprietor, the sole owner of your business. Depending on the type of structure will depend on the type of tax treatment. Again, we're talking unforeseen pitfalls. If you're a sole proprietor, you need to really make sure you're established as a limited liability company. If you're one person sole proprietor, in all honesty, it's more beneficial for you to be set up as an S corp, a small business corporation. A single member LLC really ultimately needs to be set up as a S corp, small business corporation, where you have a separate set of returns for your business, this S corp, separate set of returns for your personal, and a C corp is somewhat of a different structure, but again, it's going to protect your personal assets if it's correctly set up. A partnership is two or more. Again, you can set up to where there's no tax treatment, federal tax treatment on the income. On the federal level, you may have to deal with something on the state side. And business owners, here's a kicker. Business owners should strive to have that business pay you a W-2 salary. That salary should be tied. A lot of small businesses are in business. This might be your only source of income. And you might be just working, making money, spending money. The business ultimately shows a loss. If that's your ultimate source of income, you're going to have time trying to improve your financial stability, number one. Number two, you won't have anything to show for any type of acquisition of assets. If you're looking to buy a house, car, any type of acquisition of an asset, you may need to show tax returns that show proof of income. You may need to show tax returns that show viable income, but you're not showing it because you're showing losses that you ultimately, as a tax guy, that's their job, is to knock those incomes out and show losses and deductions and things of that nature. But what are you paying yourself? Take a good hard look. We're talking budget. We're talking the business budget. We're talking your personal budget. Take a good hard look at this concept. Pay yourself a salary and tithe on that salary. Tithing is still the order of the day. I sound like Bishop Leslie. God bless you, Bishop Leslie. Tithing is still the order of the day. It's still the order of the day. Now, you get complicated with these small businesses, but this is one good way to quantify an earning that you may be able to use for some future acquisition or future. It's a substantiated document where the company's paying you a salary. And it's a tax deductible expense. We're talking tax deductible expense. But tithe. I want to encourage every small business. To tithe on your wealth, on your revenues. All right, pastor's compensation. How we doing on time? We doing good on time? Again, we're talking budgeting on the church's side as well as budgeting on the pastor's side. Compensation from the IRS standpoint, pastors must, I put that in yellow. Pastors must be compensated. And they should be compensated.
Yes.
They should be.
Amen.
It's related to your budget. So as administrators, this is what that forecast and positioning is all about. You'll be able to determine and decipher how much You can pay your pastor. Well, pastors should be compensated. And for their preaching, teaching, sacerdotal services rendered. From a budgeting standpoint, it should be W-2 and not a 1099. W-2 with applicable federal, state, social security taxes. Form 4361 is if you're in ministry for the first 2.5 years of ministry, this form will allow you to be exempt from social security taxes as a minister. So you would not be subject to social security taxes on any income that you receive. But this is a must. This is a must. Pastors are compensated. They need to be compensated as a W-2 employee of your church. And let's make it happen, saints. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. How you go about doing that, I hope you can see this. This is an example of what a housing allowance request would look like. That's one of my agenda items here. I want to make sure you understand that there's a process. This is an example of a template. It's addressed to the board, but it's coming from the pastor. It's breaking down the compensation package. It's breaking down the components of the compensation package between salary and housing allowance. And it's actually a board approved request from the pastor. It's documented in your, yes, ma'am.
If you want to finish your thought, I just.
It's documented in your church records. So this is a business meeting analysis here where the board is going to resolve to approve this, and it's documented in your minutes.
So you said that the pastor should, and sorry, I'm not in finance, I'm in IT, but, helping in this realm. So you said that the pastor should be paid, using W-2, and so that should follow minimum wage law, according to your state, correct?
Every state is different, yeah. Right. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. But it's a package that, yes, ma'am.
How do you get there? So like, for me, for example, I've never been to a church where pastors' salary, they all had full-time jobs, their wives had full-time jobs. It just was not any income for anyone to be on salary. So how do you get there?
You raise a very, very, very good point, and I want to make sure I address that bivocational pastor. The bivocational pastor, my dad, Bishop Leslie, was bivocational. He never took a salary, until retirement. So it's a gradual process, and I applaud those bivocational pastors that work a full-time job, work a full-time salary, and don't get a dime from the church. I understand that, I get it. But there is a way to manage both. Now, that salary from the church doesn't have to be a large amount. It doesn't have to be a large amount at all. But it's something that shows, it doesn't have to be a large amount at all. You start small. So your question is, how do you get there? Is potentially starting small. Realizing that the bulk of their income is coming from their full-time job. You can gradually, as minimal as the board sees fit. It does not have to be, it could also just be a portion, just housing allowance. And what housing allowance is just kind of a gauge on what housing expenses are covered and what the church can afford to pay, what the church can afford to cover. It's not a grandiose 6 figures in most cases, but it's something that, shows appreciation, something that you can start small and gradually assess through your analysis of how the church is doing, whether you can, and most pastors won't even accept compensation from the church. At least the ones that I But it's imperative because retirement is coming. So this is a pattern, a gradual stage of life. Retirement is coming, and then what? So it's in your infancy stages, you're starting out small, you're working the compensation in very small, very small. Then retirement is going to come. Then that really needs to be addressed. That really is going to need to be addressed at some point. Because they'll have Social Security coming in, they'll have other if they do things right, they'll have other sources of revenue coming in. But the church has got to play their part. The church has got, and that's basically in essence what I'm proposing here. The church has got to help and play their part. But initially, that bivocational pastor isn't looking for it, but they deserve something. And let's try to gradually build that in. Yes, ma'am.
Well, we're much better now, but in one while, we had a hard time convincing the older pastors that word allowance was not a term they wanted to hear back in Bishop Bell's days. That meant muzzling the ox.
That's right.
So our new pastor, we have now done a housing lot. We couldn't do that for nobody else. They didn't understand it.
You know what I'm saying?
So
Yes, you're right. You're right. You're
they
right.
did not want to hear allowance. They didn't understand it.
Right.
Budget, they want the budget. That's.
Say, we about it.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I actually passed his hand off. Yes, sir.
So would the housing allowance be a W-2 item or a 1099?
That would be a W-2 item. W-2 item, subject only to the Social Security tax. Social Security tax is that 7.65, which is half of the self-employment tax, 15.3%. But it'd be a W-2. And like I said, one area of that housing allowance, again, you can't see it here, is health insurance. Maybe the housing allowance for now only covers health insurance. It might be the need for a pastor, especially as they gradually move into other phases of their life. It covers just their medical insurance. That's a great example of how you can phase that in, but it would be a W-2. It would be a W-2. So you'll see that box 2 and 4 of your W-2. It'll show that housing allowance piece, and then the tax is taken out of it. And the rest of the salary can be still part of that bivocational income that they're making from their regular secular jobs.
So is it possible to set up a salary for the pastor, but not actually pay him until like he retires?
It is. That's an offline discussion, but yeah. It is. Again, I don't want to, everybody's making, and it's not no slight against, everybody's making adjustments when it comes down to dealing with the pastor. We're making all kinds of concessions that the pastor agrees with. And they need to be put first. They need to be put first. So you're talking sacrifice right there, Pastor. And I agree with that because that's what Phil is our tech guy. That's my brother. We were raised on the sacrifices that they made. But now it's time to elevate them and put them first. Put them first. So that's a sacrifice that can be documented. And ultimately, but it ultimately is going to need to be addressed. Ultimately, it's going to need to be addressed. All right. Any? I think I got a couple more. Yeah. So, is your name in the book?
Watch your tone, bro.
It's your name. This is my picture. It's your name in the book. For our virtual audience, I've now become a preacher. I'm a deacon by trade, but now I've become a preacher. My voice has changed.
Yes, sir.
All right. Again, you might get to a point where there's a preacher to everybody. Trust me, I know there's a preacher to everybody. All you need is the right subject matter. What's on mute? You said what?
The Zoom calls on mute.
What is it with the slash is mute, right?
She's fine, you're fine.
Okay, good, yeah.
Is your name in the book?
Yeah, is These tech guys are on it. They're on it. All right. This is the Bible here. This is where here. But and Sister May, this is what Sister May was talking about earlier. I want to encourage you again, as we're starting with our churches here first. Go to the IRS website and see if your church is in the book. All right. We're going to It's just somewhat live and interactive. What that means is you've done, and this is covered up here, you go to iris.gov, go to charities and nonprofits. I'm gonna go there, there's another screen in a minute. But then you're also an individual here. This is the homepage of the IRS website. Now, trust me, I am not an advocate of dealing with the IRS, but you have to deal with them from time to time to get the information that you need. They actually have a nice setup here where you as an individual can get your tax record and see what's what. You'd be surprised. You're talking about unforeseen pitfalls and things that could really mess up your budgeting from an individual and a business standpoint. You can check online, put in your credentials. They have it set up where it's very secure to check your tax record and see what you have going on. You may be surprised. The IRS is very late with their notices. They're very late with their, consequently, they tack on all the penalties and interest that they can because they're taking their sweet time to let you know that you may owe a balance of some sort for something that took place that you didn't report on. Could be anything, could be anything. A good example of what could be 1099 cancellation of debt, credit card debt, okay? I hear before we used to do testimony service. We don't do testimony service the way we used to. I'll never forget this. One person got up and praised the Lord and said, you know what? My credit card debt, I had a balance of $10,000. And I went to the credit card company, and before I got off the call, they said the debt was done, cleared out, paid in full.
Hallelujah.
Please, hallelujah to the name of the Lord. God be praised. God be praised. Little did they know, y'all know the story now. Little did they know that at the end of that year, they got a 1099-C for cancellation of debt of that $10,000. So while they were praising God and speaking in tongues in the sanctuary, the IRS was working behind the scenes.
Was it working behind the scenes?
Put them on blast, as they say. I don't have to say it anymore. IRS put them on blast, put that 1099-C in the mail stating, this is now income that's taxable to you that you forgot to file on your personal taxes. So again, like that letter that you all saw, they send similar letters like that. You're not going to know that if you don't kind of be proactive and check your tax record. That's just an example of some of these unforeseen pitfalls and things that could really throw you. The IRS is going to take their sweet time and respond. But trust you me, when they do, they're going to have penalties, interest, and everything else associated with that. So this is dual fold. This is also how you apply for your EIN. This is also how you make tax payments on your account, check your forms, check your refunds, and things of that nature. It's time to be proactive. Don't be afraid of the IRS. Yeah, they're bullies and everything, but we have some ammunition too. We have the Lord, of course, but we have ammunition too that we can kind of be proactive and fight and see what's what. But you're here, charities and nonprofits. You're going to click on that, check your status as a tax exempt organization. That's where I'm going with this. Tax exempt organization. You'll be able to put in your organization name, or as a drop down for your EIN, you can put that information in and do a search. Do a search. If you've done your 501c3 applications and put that in and got the letter of determination that explains your tax exempt status, it's still good to check and see if that status is still current. This is a way to go check that out. And I will say this. There have been some statuses that may have started out with that letter of determination that may not be in good standing for whatever reason. So you're operating as a nonprofit, you're giving out food, you're giving out clothes, you're giving out, all kinds of philanthropic things, but you may not be a nonprofit. Check this out. You see, this is our example of Pentecostal churches. We're in the book. Pentecostal Church of Apostolic Faith International. We're in the book. You can see it down here. We're in the book. So that's still is the name of the book. PCFA's name is in the book. I encourage you to check your church, check your nonprofit status, put in your credentials, and see what's what. We're there by the grace of God, but we're there. But it's taking us, we have to monitor this. We have to monitor this on a regular basis to make sure nothing's falling out of place in terms of our status. I believe that's all.
Deacon Lester,
Yes,
I noticed that the Pentecostal name was in the book, but will your council be listed under the Pentecostal?
that no. But, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. We're going to address that. We're going to address that very soon as to how the councils are going to fall under the umbrella of PCAF. Right now, there are several that are independently incorporated. We're going to address that. But as of right now, if you punch in your council's name, no, it's not going to show up.
If you using those, apps to bring in money for your council,
Mhm.
I'm not sure how to ask this question.
It's set up some kind of way. That's what the research is going to be, some way, shape, or form.
But you'll be able to pull it up. You won't be able to pull it up under that hour that's your.
No,
your
no, ma'am. But someone somewhere set something up. And it's a matter of seeing who that is and how we can track it, because it's trackable. They may have used the organization's EIN to set it up, which we're gonna put some brakes on that. Honorable Sister Stone. And it's so good to see you. It's so good to see you. Praise the
Did it
Lord.
used to be in there?
Ma'am?
Did it used to be in there?
Not council. If the council was separately incorporated, maybe. Which I believe Illinois may be, and it may be. But it's tied to that EIN. This is the virtual facility. Everybody wave, hey, hey. Thank y'all for joining us. Thank y'all for joining us. Hope y'all got something out of this discussion. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat. Okay. Is there, can you see how many is in the virtual?
Is that anything?
Okay, that's fine.
I put a chat in on the app though, so I don't know if you guys do. So if you have the PCFI app logged in, you actually could have chatted in the class.
Oh, so that's
So
even.
I was the only one. Dean Leslie, so this PowerPoint presentation, I saw a lot of people taking pictures. We're gonna make this available in the virtual report.
What about the first one?
Well, the first one, I believe, was the first one also available already?
I have to look from the lead conference.
Okay,
I think you're available to access it 30 days after the conference, after that's no longer available, but
we can certainly load it again. I have it already.
So where did we get this from?
so if you register for the conference, if you go to the Six Connect, the virtual platform, in the classrooms,
Oh, okay.
there's like a briefcase, and you can click on the briefcase and download all the handouts that's in all the classrooms.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I'm open for questions,
You said that you're gonna put a break on the, using the PCAF EIN for even church individuals.
Well, right now, the churches that aren't, let me just, I hear what you're saying. Churches that aren't separately incorporated in the state, they can use, what they call the group exemption ruling, or the PCFA have to govern and run and operate. So you're in order if you do that.
Okay.
The problem is though, when you get on the state level, you're gonna need to be incorporated on the state level to do things on that state level. If you want to get into some state programs, oftentimes they're gonna ask for your state incorporation documents. So that's why I'm encouraging churches, even though you can use the group exemption umbrella of the organization, it's still good and beneficial to incorporate your church in your state. Get those documents incorporated and filed in the state, so you be on record as a state incorporated entity. That may help you down the road, getting some funding, getting some support and things of that nature. And so also encourages churches to get your separate 501c3 for that purpose, your nonprofit status for that same purpose of receiving funding in your state or receiving some level of funding that you may not be able to get on the organizational level. Every state is different, every state is competitive, so that's why I encourage that. But in the interim, yes, you can use the group exemption to operate, but it's strongly encouraged to do your own incorporation. Yes, Pastor.
Do you have a sample letter that you showed template, I should say, for the board meeting to request.
Yes. That was it, and I have an electronic version of that. I'll make sure I incorporate that into the
Thank you.
package, yes, yes. Yes, sir.
So if you're individual and you use these apps for cash, so if you're over $600, then that particular app will send you a 1099 at the end of the year, starting this year.
Yeah. As you can see, that letter, it's already started.
Right, so how do you?
Avoid that.
I mean, and it's not income, so
Yeah.
how do you?
Well, it is, isn't it? It's.
No, if it's gifts,
So
if
that-
you're just an individual, not a.
Therein lies the gray area. It's going to be up to you. If they don't get it right on their side, it's going to be up to you, the taxpayer, to prove that it isn't. If they give you that document, they're already going to assume that it's business income that you're going to have to file, or some level of income that needs to be filed. And that's the big thing, it's the individuals. They're not necessarily worried about the businesses. They're going to catch them one way or the other. But if, and like I said, if they don't catch it, they may have some algorithm that say, okay, we see the note says it's a birthday gift, though. The algorithm is gonna say exclude any given this. I don't know, but there may be some systematic way that they can decipher what's what. But if they don't, and you get that 1099, you're gonna have to, but there are ways to offset that income. There are ways to offset and eliminate that income. You gotta get a tax cut. This way, get rid of it. This way, get rid of it. I saw another fresh in.
Okay, so just,
No,
which
go
way you
ahead.
gonna take? So just help me out. I overpaid something on some insurance money. They sent me a refund. They put it in my husband's name because it's he and I both.
Mhm.
I know banks now don't take the check. So he says, honey, you paid all this insurance, so the money that they're sending back really goes to you.
Mhm.
I can't put it in my account because it's in his name.
Yeah.
I said, honey, you cash the check and sell it to me. Now, if he can ready to sell me $2,600, now, this is not no income.
Right.
So-
Right.
You mean to tell me,
I gotta read that.
Yes.
Zelle, I understand Zelle may be different in terms of how they're going to use it. I don't believe Zelle's gonna be part of this merchant 1099K
okay, so
business. But that's an excellent example of non-business income
Yeah, I know
that's
that's-
coming in through this electronic. Again, they're gonna have to figure that out, and I believe they are. How to decipher what's what.
Sister Diane said something, she said you overpaid.
I overpaid some health insurance.
So that's not income because you overpaid. It was
Correct.
an expense.
Well, I understood that, but I didn't understand that.
Yeah, they.
So, yeah,
And more than likely, yes, but who knows?
Keep getting that.
We have to make sure that they understand what in the world is going on. And this being that first real year of everything, it's gonna be interesting, but I agree with them. They need to know.
But it still goes into even all the birthday stuff that people send you. They send you to say, I want to be nice, they send you $50, everything's added up at the end of the year.
Yeah. Okay, there's going to be a way that, I'm just giving you a worst case. That's a worst case scenario. They don't know how to figure it out, and they send you a 1099 everything.
Now, the other thing for clarification, because in some of our churches, in our church, some of our auxiliaries have set up their own little cash apps.
Right.
And I don't think they use the church EIN number, they use their own personal, so they're going to be charged at the end of the year, like they got that money.
Yeah, wow.
If we gotta make sure that change is going to be, ideally, it's fall under the umbrella of the PCAF, and the 1099K will be in the EIN, we can work that out. And I helped a couple of them set it up that way, but some didn't. Again, in their haste to switch over, they may not have done that. So yes,
Oh, you know what?
it counts, it counts, and I see what's
I don't
going on.
know about it, you, I think we did our own for the missionary. Oh, I'm done.
That's another good example. That's
Because
another
we
good
have a
example.
cash out for the missionary department. I think that's
Another
that.
example. It's gonna be interesting, so it's gonna be a lot more praying going on too out there in 2022, 2023. Yes.
Dean Leslie, like, what I'm hearing also, I don't know if there's a good resource or a good company for churches that need their 501c done, if they don't have it because they're under the PCF.
Yeah.
Is there a company, a resource that we can refer them out to, or some kind of training? Right, some kind of training, because I know there is a company out there that, I mean, there's a fee associated with it. I don't know if you've ever heard of Start Church. Start Church has a lot of good information for churches, if you want to put policies together, if you want to file tax exempt status with the IRS. They're a great resource, and they actually send update newsletters on tax laws and different things. So Start Church is a good company if you want to look into it, and they're not very expensive, just depending on what type of service you need. But then I didn't know, like PCF, for those that are wanting to do their own 501c3 and not fall under the PCF umbrella, are there resources or training that we can give our pastors or their treasurers to get that work going? So they don't have to use PCF EIN
Yes,
number.
ma'am. It's coming, it's coming. Again, I don't want to say, he's done it from our side, but he's got some, things that he's gonna be rolling out that's gonna include that kind of training. Yes, just, when you hear it, just holler and scream, because it's coming, it's coming, it's coming.
So, for fundraising purposes, as you mentioned, churches should have their own 501c3, along with other entities that may be connected with the church. They should be separate as well.
Excellent point, excellent point. And the answer is yes. A separate 501c3 nonprofit entity for each business is encouraged as well. Depending on, because we have a church, 501c3, we have a daycare center, that's a separate 501c3. We have a community center, that's a separate 501c3, 3 separate 501c3s, based on the different types of activity, but it's also based on the funding.
Right, because that's what I was gonna say.
That's what-
That's what I do. I'm a fundraiser, so I know there's organizations, they will not give to churches.
Absolutely right.
But they would give to an after-school program, or they would give to something.
100% correct. And that's another reason for separation, making sure that church business entity is separate, because they're not. They're absolutely right. They'll be more inclined if you're doing a food pantry or some type of, and you're set up that way, they're more inclined to give it to that business than the church. Absolutely.
Regarding the situation, the example with Diane, as far as overpayment.
Yeah.
I think the key is creating a paper trail of proof. Otherwise, that liability is on you. So you have to understand what happened and be able to show proof of that it was overpayment and not income.
Pastor, you correct. In 2 instances, we did do that for that letter that we received. We had to send the IRS proof of our position. So we had to get the bank statements in the church. While we were doing that, we were communicating with Cash App. I think you asked that question. We finally got into a live email exchange. They changed those 1099-Ks to the church. That's the ultimate result of that. We communicated that to the IRS and we're going to hear back from them. To see if they got it and they're going to just wipe it all away. So that's an excellent point, excellent point.
So it's 3 o'clock, if there's no more questions, we do have our giveaway in the foyer over here. If you're interested, we're going to give away gift cards for people that attended the conference or attended the seminars. So, but excellent, I'm looking forward to your party.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Anytime, I'll be available, I think, anytime this week, if you want to have a dinner, a lunch, or a sausage, I'll be